Okay, welcome back. Let's continue taking a look at AngularJS. So last class we met, we introduced the notion of using Angular routing to provide the feature of being able to navigate between many pages. Right? It would allow us to break up our application into separate dedicated pages, right? One for like a home page, one that allows us to look at our profile, where we could store things about a particular user. Then a separate page for details, right? We also showed you how to split the application we've been working on, being able to connect to a web API that it used to be a single page. Well, still a single page application, but instead of having all the feature on a single page, we split it up into 3 pages, right? The home, where you had the search and search results, the profile, where I could see my favorites, and a third one where we could see the details, right? So let's revisit that, how to use routing. Let's do it from scratch again, right? Just to go over and make sure that we know what we're doing, and we'll give us a chance to practice, and so you could start working on experiments on your own. Okay. All right, so let's see. Let's start from scratch. 45, 56, 10, experience, ng routing, right? That's where we were last Wednesday, right? Yes. What's the question?
Can you give me your general idea to compare jQuery and AngularJS, which is better?
Right. So the question is, can we compare jQuery and Angular? Right. So jQuery is a library that looks to standardize the way we interact with the browser, right? So that instead of having to write code specific to a particular browser, we have an API so that it is cross-browser compatible, right? So that we don't have to write all sorts of if statements depending on which browser we want to use, correct? So it abstracts the browser and it gives us a consistent API across all browsers. And the way it works is that it works directly with the DOM, right? So you can pick out different pieces of the DOM, right? You can use CSS3 rules, so you can refer to particular places in the DOM, right? You can manipulate it. You can add, you can remove things from the DOM. You can change the DOM, and it's from an Angular's point of view, it's a very low-level library, right? That gives a standard access to the DOM. That's all it is, right? Angular looks to create a higher level of abstraction where you don't necessarily work directly with the DOM, right? For that, we have these libraries that manipulate the DOM. What we have is an object-oriented model of our application, right? We have an object that represents the state of our application, and then that object gets mapped to templates in the UI, right? Notice that nowhere in our controllers, right? Never Angular is anywhere aware of classes, of IDs, right? Is aware of the DOM structure, right? Never, right? Never in Angular. Instead, what we do is that the view is somewhat aware of the UI, right? It's aware. It's only to say, well, whatever this div is, or a table, or UL, whatever it is, I want to repeat it, right? But I'm never aware that it's this particular class, this particular ID, this particular div, template, or span, or anything like that, right? So the DOM is at its lowest level is maintained by the browser, right? And jQuery allows us to manipulate the DOM, and Angular sits on top of that, right? Manipulating the DOM for us, but from an object-oriented point of view, right? And following this pattern of model view controller, right, where you have the controller accessing the data and providing the data to the view, and then the view displaying that data, right? So you never, for instance, we never say, generate an event handler, click event handler, right? We abstract that by providing this, scope dot, we name the event handler from Angular, right? So it's at a higher level. It's a higher level of abstraction. Angular does not depend on jQuery. It has its own way of manipulating the DOM for us, right? If it finds jQuery, if it does find jQuery as having been already loaded, it will use jQuery for its low-level DOM manipulation, right? But it does not depend on jQuery. If you don't load jQuery, it will not use jQuery to manipulate the DOM. It will use its own DOM manipulation schema. Okay. If you use Bootstrap, right? If you use Bootstrap, the JavaScript Bootstrap, it does depend on jQuery. So you have to load jQuery before you load the Bootstrap JS, right? So if you load a jQuery, it will obviously Angular will use jQuery for manipulating the DOM. I'm sorry, there's something out here. We'll keep looking at it. Oh, okay. Did that explain it? That make sense?
I mean, AngularJS is not using, directly operate the DOM, right?
Who? Yeah, it operates on the DOM. It operates on the DOM, right? But it's abstracted from you, right? The controller is not aware of the DOM, as opposed to in jQuery, in JavaScript, you are literally grabbing pieces of the DOM, right, using CSS3, right, referring to specific portions of the DOM and manipulating and putting data, extracting it, cloning it, adding, appending, right, to the DOM. Angular from JavaScript, you never do that, right? You just send arrays and objects and literal, right? And then the view does whatever it does, right? In the template, it'll just display the JSON or parts of the JSON or iterate over arrays and things like that, right? But never do we programmatically manipulate the DOM directly through Angular, right? It's several levels deep, right? The actual manipulation of the DOM. Right? We don't see the little manipulation of the DOM from Angular, but Angular does manipulate the DOM, obviously. Yeah? Okay, it just creates an abstraction for us. All right.
So which technology should we do recommend us?
Well, it depends what you're doing, right? I mean, you could do everything in jQuery, just like you could do everything in JavaScript, right? JavaScript is even more low level, right? If you really want to know, which particular browser you're using, then on top of that we create jQuery, right, which abstracts that from us, and then we put Angular on top of that, which is even more abstraction. So it depends. If you want to code it in assembly, I mean, yes, you could do anything in assembly, right? But then we create those abstractions called languages, programming languages, right? So we create C++, right? That was somewhat of an abstraction. And then we said, well, let's create something even more abstract. Well, no, assembly, then C, and then C++, and then more modern languages. All those are abstractions, right? It's often out of some machine, right? Some virtual machine, right? So it depends, right? Where do you want to be? I would argue that you can do everything in Angular. Right? There's no need. I mean, there's some really cool widgets that are still available only through jQuery, like draggable, right, sortable. All these things are not available in Angular, right? There's ways to connect and work with both, right? Like we can create an Angular directive and say, create my own tag and say this is draggable, my own tag, right? Meaning anything that I put in here is draggable, right? And then from that directive, I can grab the actual DOM elements. Right now, I can go back to jQuery and say, grab the original element and use the jQuery draggable behavior on that element, right? And now it's draggable. So we can connect those two. And I guess let's create an example of that. I'll create a lecture for that. That's really cool. Like sortable, all those things, you can only do it through jQuery, right? And you have directives. There's some libraries that allow you to link the two. Okay. Yes.
So, but Professor, for jQuery, like there are two different libraries. For UI, there is different libraries. Like for graphical and all.
Yep.
Right? So do we need to import both the libraries?
Yeah, you would have to import both libraries. Yep.
In
But
order to work with Angular.
oh, no. Angular does not depend on any of those two libraries.
No. If I want to add the feature, if I want to use the jQuery variable feature
Yep.
using Angular.
You need to load both of them. Yeah, you need to load both of them. But for instance, the thing is that say you make something draggable, right? And from jQuery, and you start dragging it, Angular is completely unaware that this thing is moving around. Okay, and so jQuery would need to somehow notify Angular that the model is changing, right? Because Angular has a very high level representation of where things are in the screen, right? Maybe you have things, several divs position at particular places in your screen, right? And Angular, well, says, well, I know where things are. If somebody's moving them around, Angular is not aware of it, right? So it would have to, now they would have to talk to one another, right? jQuery would have to notify, says, hey, model, your new X and Y positioning is, your top and left is now this, and Angular says, oh, thank you, right? So you have to connect the two. Same thing, right? If you make something sortable, right? Angular will ng repeat over several elements and create for you the ULs and the LIs, right? You start sorting them around, right? Moving them around, right? But the array still has the same order, right? Because the way it was generated was iterating over an array, right? It's in the order in which the array is in, right? If you start moving them around, and then you would have to notify Angular that says, hey, I changed the order of these things. You have to update your model, right? Right, because right, the only way that Angular knows what order to render them is because it has an array and things are in that particular order, right? So right, they would have to talk to one another, and that'll be a cool experiment to work. I'll create a lecture for that. All right. Meanwhile, let's go back to our today's topic, routing, right? Okay. Let's create something here. Oops. There we go. Let's see. Where do we stop here? We created a 004. Let's create something brand new, and let's add a page. I'll call this 010 for today, or 100 HTML. And let's see. This is still routing. Angular routing. And let's see, we need to load those libraries, and the libraries are where? Let's see, let's load Bootstrap. Bootstrap, there it is. Oh, we need we need style sheet. Then we have, let's see, what else do we need? We need the Angular libraries. So we'll say script, source, and we'll say go up a couple of times. And we have Angular, there's Angular. And we'll load also the routing library. Let's say source, JS, and routing. Okay. There we go. All right, and let's see. We're going to need an application, so we'll create here an ng app, and we'll call this. Let's see. Let's create something like a course management application, right? So something like Piazza, right? So course app. And we're going to say that we're going to have our content here, right? So we're going to have a div, class container, and we're going to say hello here. Okay, let's run that. Let's see where we are. Let me see if it complains. It looks like it complained. Right, it's looking for the declaration of that application, right? So Angular looked at this and says course app. Well, I'm looking for a module called course app. It didn't find one. Let's create one. Yeah. So let's create here a script source, and it'll be our application, and we'll store it at 100.js. 100.js. Let me stop that. And so let's create that script here. It'll be 100.js. There it is. And here's where we're going to create the application. Right? We're going to say var. The app is going to be Angular.module, and it's called, what is it? Course app, right? Course app, right? And it's going to depend on the router, right? We are going to use the module for the routing, so ng route. And ng route. Very good. Let's reload that. Okay, it did find it now. It found it. All right, fine. Let's see. What else do we need to do? Let's close all but this. What else do we need to do? Let's see. We said that here we're going to have. Actually, let's use one of the templates from Bootstrap. Let's go to Bootstrap and use one of the templates. Let's see. Getting started, and the templates are way down here. Where are they? There we go. Let's use this one. Let's do the source, and we're going to load everything that's in the body. Everything that's in the body. Well, maybe not everything. Up to here, maybe. Container. There we go. Let's load that, and let's put it in here. Let's load it again. Okay, we have a hello world, and we have kind of like a login place, and we have down below some heading. Okay, everybody okay? All right. What else? What we want to do is this be the home page, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to create pages for this, and we'll put the pages in. So this is for the course management application we're building, right? So we're going to create a directory for the pages that we want here, right? So course app. So in here we're going to let's put home. Right, so this will be home.html. And in here, let's paste that container there. Okay. So let's take this out of here. Let's see. Oops. Did we erase too much stuff? So this is body, right? Body. Right. I want to feed home in here, right? So we want to include home in here. So we're going to say I'm going to have a div class. We're going to say here we're going to have ng view, right? And basically this is where things are going to be fed in dynamically, depending on what we're going to be looking at. We need a controller, right? That that will tell us, depending on where you're navigating, you will show one page or the other, right? And it will be injected into this view div. Okay, right? So let's configure the route provider. So we're going to say app.config the route provider, and it'll use this function, and it will receive this as an argument. And in here we're going to say what to do when, right? So our default will be maybe just show the home, show the home page. I forget what the configuration looks like. So AngularJS route provider. So let's see the example here real quick. Oops. Uh-oh. Is it not here? Route provider, example, route. Where is it? Really? AngularJS routing. Let's see, container. Okay, we did that, ng route. Here's a provider, config. There we go. Let's copy that. Config. Okay, so what we want to do is that if we want to navigate home, we'll go to the pages. Where do we put the pages? We put them on the course app, right? So let's say that the pages are under course app, and the first page is home, HTML. We don't have a controller yet. And that's the only page we have so far. And if we don't know where to go, we'll default to home. Everybody okay? Pretty good? All right, let's try that now. Let's try our, let's relook at, look, okay, that seemed to work. Oh, there it is, hash home, right? Anything I type here, if it's nothing, it defaults to home. So this is being loaded from the home page, right? From that template. Now that template, that home template, maybe there's too much in here, right? For instance, this container and this navigational, this nav bar up at the top, right? This navigational, maybe that should be shared across all pages, right? So instead of having this here, maybe they should live one above, right? So I'll show you, right? If I have the profile page, let's have a profile page, right? Say we have profile.html, right? And I just have here profile. So H1 profile. One thing I could do is just copy the navigation because I want that navigation across all pages, right? One thing that I could do is just copy that navigation in home and then here, but then that would make it hard to manipulate, right? Or made for maintenance. If I ever want to change the navigational, I need to go and change it in all the pages. Instead, what I would like to do is perhaps put it one up, right? Put it at the outside of the ng view, right? So that the ng view changes, you know, from one page to the other, but the navigation is the same, right at the top. Okay. So I added profile. Let me add that to my controller. So let me add here profile. Right, if I want to go to profile, right? So let's see if this works. If I go home, but if I type profile, I go to the profile page. So it works, right? I can navigate between the two. I just need to create those links. So yeah, so I wanted the profile to show the same top header, right? So we're going to take that, rip that apart from the home page, and I'll put it above, right, outside. So let's revisit home. So this nav bar here, right, that starts off over here and goes all the way down here. We're going to copy that and then rip it from here. And we're going to take it away from here and show that in the outside of the ng view. So we're going to put a div outside, right? We're going to paste that nav. Did I not copy the nav? Must have not copied it. Oh, yeah, there it is. I think I could grab everything. There we go. Go back. I'm going to paste it in here. And then following that, I'll put the ng view. Yes? Let's try that again. Let's refresh. So it looks like it's working. One thing that I might, if I go to profile, looks like it's working. Sort of. There's some problem. Notice that it's the same perennial problem, right? We have to push the body down, right? Because this is a fixed, right? It's a fixed header, meaning the bottom scrolls, but the header doesn't, right? And the way it's done is that we fix its position, right? So let's fix that. We can do that by adding here a common style or in a separate CSS, right? A common CSS style. So we're going to say body, and we're going to add a padding at the top of, I don't know, say 60 pixels. All right, so profile is fixed, but notice that profile it's not listening to the container, right? Right? That's because I believe we don't have a container in the outer div. So let's fix that. Let's go back to 100 here. I'm going to put a container here. So class container. All right, there it is. So profile now it has this nice padding, and I can go back to my home profile, What I would like to do is provide a navigational here that will allow me to go nav, to the home, to the profile, right? So let's do that here. For that, let's go to Bootstrap and copy some of their navigational. So let's go Bootstrap, and let's go getting started, and let's page down. Where are we? Let's see. Hello, where are we? Okay, so for instance, this one has an idea like this we want, right? So let's show the source, and the navigational is right here. This is the URL that does the generator. So notice that the difference here is that it has same thing nav, right? But it has navbar right? That puts it to the right-hand side. Or the other one, if you don't say it, it'll go to the left-hand side, right? So let's grab this for navigation. Although, actually, no, we do want it on the left-hand side, don't we? We do want it on the left-hand side. So anyway, we should have here a nav somewhere here that we have the project. Okay, we have this project over here, right? And you have these, we have the project, and we have a navigation on the left-hand side. So let's copy this right here. Navbar brand. Right after that brand, right after that brand, we want to put this over here. Okay, so let's copy that. So that would be right after this. And copy it and close it. The UL. Let's close the UL and let's close the div. That closes that, and this closes this. Oh, did we already have a navbar? Oh, this is oh, we already did. Oh, but this is from the right-hand side, right? That's for the right-hand side. For logging in, right? So let's go back. Let's reload. There it is. We have home and about, and somehow, wait, what's going on? We forget to copy something? We must have forgotten to copy something. Div. What are we missing? What are we missing? Let's see. UL, blah, blah, blah. Div nav collapse. Oh, we have two divs. This div closes with which one? That one, right? Well, that should be okay. Collapse. Oh, you have two collapse? No, I don't think we want that. We have collapse. Oh, then what happens, I think, is we don't want this. And we want navbar right. We just want this navbar on the left-hand side. Just want this UL on the navbar. There we go. I think we want this like that. There we go. Okay, so it's on the left-hand side, and it's listing the home, the about, right? And so let's see. We want to be able to go home, right? So this first one should go where? Let's remove this for a second. The hyperlink to this should be /home, right? That will take us home. And this one, if this is a profile, this should take us to /profile, right? So if we refresh here, and if we click on home, right, this allows you to navigate between the two, right? What else should we want here? Maybe, maybe you have the other ones, right? Maybe you have about, contact, and so on and so forth. So you have maybe about. Maybe you have contact us, contact, right? Maybe profile should be last, right? So if you reload here, home takes us home, profile takes us to profile, about doesn't take us anywhere, right? Since those are not defined, the controller doesn't know anything about it. It defaults to home, right? But let's quickly create them real quick. Let's just copy this, and this one will be about, and this will be contact, right? And contact will say contact, right? And about will say about, right? And we can add them to the controller, saying that if it's about, go to the about page, right? And if it's what is it? Contact, go to the contact page. Well, let's see. Contact goes to contact, profile, contact, about, home. Okay, it works, right? Now this profile should only show, right? It should only show if you're logged in, right? So somehow we need a model that represents, you know, the currently logged in person, and we should be able to show different content depending on who's logged in, right? And only show profile if you're logged in. If you're logged in, we should not show you the login on the right hand side, right? So we kind of need a controller for that, right? We need somebody to control that navigational at the top, right? And depending on different status, we would display certain things or not. Okay. So we need a controller. We'll say that actually let's leave this as is. Let's create a separate one here. Let's go on to 110.html and 110.js. Okay. Let's bring those two up, and let's close all the other ones. Is there a way to, Control W does not close windows? Is there a shortcut to closing windows on Visual Studio? Anybody? Other than close all but? Huh? Is there a keyboard shortcut? No? Anybody? No? All right. Never mind. Okay, so let's link these two, right? So the page is 110.js. All right, let's see if it works. Let's go to 110. See if we're still working. Okay, it works, right? So home, about, contact, profile. All right, very good. So let's create a navigational controller that will handle the login, the profiles, right? Whether you're showing the profile or not. Okay, let's do that. So let's see. We want this navigate. This is the navigation, right? This is starts here. We want the navigational to be handled. The navigation to be handled by a controller. So what we're going to do here, we're going to say ng controller is going to be handled by the nav controller. Right. So this particular piece of this nav, right, is going to be controlled by the navigation controller. Whereas the home and the profile and all those will be controlled by their own controllers, right? And somehow they need to talk to one another, right? In last class, we did look at a technique that would allow us to have these guys talk to one another, right? So and we'll revisit that today. Anyway, so what do we have here? Let's see. We have the navigation controller. We would like to, let's see, be able to log in. So we have the form for login right here. Right, here's the input fields for the username, and here's the input field for the password. Right, instead of email, just username. So username, and we'll tie this to the controller through a model. Right, we'll say ng model equal username, and we'll tie the password ng model equal password. Okay, so that the controller can see this, right? And if they click on the button to log in, we'll notify the controller. We'll say ng click equal login. All right. Now we don't have that controller. We have to create that controller. It doesn't exist, right? So let's create the controller. It's called nav controller, and so we'll go here and we'll create the navigation controller. We'll say app.controller. the name of the controller, and then function. Right, and to be able to talk to the UI, we'll have this as the scope. And what we want to do is listen in for that login, right? We're going to say, let's see, we're going to say a var login. It's that function that's it's being called from the UI, right? And we want to retrieve the username and password. So var username, we're going to grab it from scope.username, and var password equal scope.password. So we have those two things now here. We can just console log and just to display them. So if I go here and I look at my console, right? If I log in, whatever I type here, and I say sign in, it doesn't work. Why is it not working? Log in controller. Is the button, the ng click login, submit. Maybe there should be a button. I don't want an actual submit. I don't want to submit this. Are we even being called here? Let's see what's going on here. Nav controller, app function. Nav controller, ng controller, nav controller, 110, nav controller. Let me see if this is even being instantiated. Oh, scope.login, right? Yeah, that works. Right. It was just creating a local login, right? Whereas we want to tie this function with whatever the UI declared as a login function, right? All right. So what do we want to do with this? Let's see. What do we want to do? If you remember from last class, well, one of the things here is that if we log in and control the entire state of the user here, there would be no way for us to notify anything up to the other controllers, right? Like, handling of who's currently logged in, right? So what we should do is not control the state of the user here, but maintain it in a local place where all controllers can see it, right? So if you remember the way we did this in last class is that we created a service, right? And this was a singleton instance that could be shared amongst all controllers so that they could all see the data, the shared data, right? So let's do that. Instead of holding the data here, instead of holding the data here, we're going to create a service. We're going to create a service, right? So let's create a service. Let's say app.factory. And we'll call it the user service, and it'll be a function, right? And store everything that has to do about users, the currently logged in users, and so on and so forth. We'll put it here, okay? So, for instance, we're going to say var current user right now is null, right? There's nobody there. We're going to create a login, which what should it do? This really should go out to the database, right? Should go out to the server, verify the username and password, see if that person actually exists, and come back to us saying yes, this person exists, or no, right? So this login, right? So we provide a username and password, and this would verify that, right? It would return yes or no. Right? So and we would expose the interface through a return with that. Okay, right? So we don't have a database yet, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to hard code here a couple of users. Okay, presumably these are users that we can retrieve from a RESTful service back to the server, but we don't have that yet. So let's create a couple of users here. So it'll be an array of objects with a username, Alice, and password, maybe also Alice. And let's copy this. Let's create 3 users. And this would be maybe Bob, and Charlie. Okay, right, just that. ABC. So the login, what it would do is it would fetch data from the server, right? Passing the data to the server, the username and password encrypted perhaps, right? And it would come back true, false, or the actual object for the user, right? Over here, we're just going to do something really, really simple. We're just going to iterate over the user array, which is local here. So var u in user, and compare just the username against that, right? Obviously, we would compare both username and password. So we're going to say, you know, if user sub users, if users sub u dot username is equal to username and the password, I'm not going to do the password. If it's just the username matches, I'm just going to return the user sub u, right? Otherwise, I'm going to return null, right? Return null. There is no such user with that username and password. Okay? Okay? All right. So now that I have the service, the nav controller is going to use that service. It's called a user service. So that's going to be injected, right, using inversion of control. So now that I have the username, I'm just going to use the service, right? And the only reason I made it a service is so I can reuse that service in other controllers, right? I can use it in the home controller. I can use it in the profile controller. I can use it elsewhere, right, about who's currently logged in, right, so that I can display things, the profile for that particular user. If I know who the user is, I can fetch data about the profile for that particular user, right? Well, who do I ask who's currently logged in? I can always ask the service, right? Actually, that's a good thing, right? When you log in, we might store that the current user is users sub u. Right, so we keep track of who's currently logged in, and perhaps we provide a function, you know, get current user, right, as a function that retrieves and returns the current user, right? And we expose this in the API, right? So okay, so here's the control. What's the controller going to do? It's going to call this login function. Yes, it's going to say user service dot login. We're going to provide the username and password, right? And that's going to give me the current user, right? So I was going to say scope. I'm going to send the current user back to the UI. Yes, I'm going to say, hey UI, this is the current user. So the UI will have information about who's currently logged in. Everybody okay? Yes. Login will either return null or return the currently logged in user, right? So login, the service, is going to iterate. If it finds it, it'll return the object that represents that user. If it doesn't find it, it'll return just null, right? So this one will be either the currently logged in user or it'll be null. Yes, right? All right. So now let me see. Let me just refresh. Right, so if I go Alice, presumably I'm signed in. Presumably, one way that we can check to see is that if I do log in, the profile, right? The profile should appear, right, or not appear if it's null, right? So initially, in the nav controller, in my nav controller, the current user should be null to start off, right? I could say that to start off, current user is null, right? And here I can go to my login, my profile, right? This over here, and not show it. I can say if it's null, ng show. I can say if if current user, if current user. So what that's going to say, if current user is truthy, meaning if it's not null, it's not undefined, right? The length is not zero, it's not false, right? Meaning it's something other than, it's something, right? Then I'll show it, right? If instead, if it's any one of those, zero, null, false, undefined, right? All those, it will not show it, right? So if I go here, profile is not showing. See that? Profile is not showing, right? But if I log in, profile appears, right? So then I can navigate to that particular profile, right? Also, the login should disappear, right? Because I've logged in, and it should replace with logout, right? So the way we could do that is this form over here. The form should show, so ng show, if not current user. Oops, if not current user, right? If there is, if it's false, right? If it's not false, no, if it is false or null or empty or whatever, right? Then show the form. But once it has a value, don't show the form anymore. Make sense? All right. So we can try this again. So if I go, Alice, and I log in, right? It disappears, and it should show me the logout, right? So for the logout, I should provide a link for this, right? I can provide a UL, right? Same thing like this, similar to this, right? But this is UL like that. But this is navbar right, I believe. Navbar dash. Is that right? Yeah, right. This will show me log out. Okay. Log out, and log out should only appear if I'm currently logged in, right? So this should appear if ng show current user. Okay, so let's try that. So we have Alice sign in. Now we have a logout, right? Okay, let's see. So wait, so if I give something bogus, okay, it's not working, right? Profile doesn't show up, right? Maybe I should show some pop-up saying, we don't know who you are or something. We can show that depending on the results that's coming back, right? But you could do that as an experiment, perhaps. Okay, so we have the basics of logging in. If we have Alice, and I sign in, the profile. Notice that the profile takes me to the profile, but whose profile? Well, it should provide some kind of parameter saying, oh, it's Alice's profile, right? So that link over here, should provide as an argument the profile that we want to navigate to. Obviously, there are no security things here, right? If I know the person's username, I can just go to their profile. But we'll talk about security next week. No, the week after that. We'll talk about Passport and all sorts of server-side login, right? And you can maintain sessions and things like that. This is kind of a toy, right? That it's the introduction of how you might handle logging in. Okay, but typically you do all this on the server, right? But today I just wanted to show you, being able to route, right, depending on several conditions. Yes, and hide or show different things depending on different conditions. Anyway, so I would like to pass as an argument in the profile. I would like to pass as an argument the current user, right? So I don't want to go to just a profile. I would like to go to the profile current user, right? Current user dot username, right? I would like to go to the profile for that particular user who's currently logged in, right? Notice that this will only show if there is an object of type current user defined, right? If it is defined, I want the username at the end of this URL, Okay, so let's try that. So if I refresh, right? If I go contact and I go username, Alice, can you even see that? And I sign in, profile appears. Notice if I hover down below, it says, notice it says profile/Alice, right? So let's try that. So if I click on that, it's taking me home. That wasn't my intention. Why is it taking me home? Well, it's because in the controller, the patterns are home, about, contact, profile. But what I'm passing along is what? That link is no longer just /profile, it's /profile/something, right? So it doesn't match /profile. So it doesn't match any of these, so it just goes home. Make sense? So now I have to pattern match this here, right? I have to say, no, I do want to go to the profile, but I want to go to the profile of, I am passing you the username. This is a parameter I am passing, right? Whatever is at the end of that that URL, I want you to bind that last piece to a variable, to some parameter, right? Some URL parameter called username that I can then read from my code, right? Because then I want to use that to go fetch that person's profile, right, from the server, correct? Right? So yeah, so I have the username. I'm passing this along. So now this should work. Let's reload this, and I go Alice, and I sign in. Now I can go to profile. Now it goes to profile, and I have Alice. So now I have to fetch Alice's profile, right? So the controller should do that. The controller should say, oh, I know who the username is now, right? Let me fetch the profile for that particular user. That needs to be done in the controller, right? The controller is the one who's going to go fetch data about that particular user. Right? But notice that the profile has no controller. Let's create a controller for this HTML. So I'm going to say the controller is going to be my profile controller, right, which we have not defined. Let's define it. So let's define no, I have everything inside. I have everything declared inside of the same JS file, right? Typically, you would not do this, right? You would typically have each controller defined in its own JS file, right? If it's any controller worth anything, right? It should be complex enough that it warrants its own JavaScript file, right? Not like we have it here in a single one. Same thing for the service, right? The service would live in one single file. This controller would live in a file. This controller would live in a file. This configuration perhaps would live in a file, right? Separated, right? So that it can be manipulated and maintained separately. Okay, right? Yes. No. Let's see. Here's the controller. So here's a function. So we have scope, and we might want the user service again. User service. Oops. User service. Okay. All right. Another thing that I might want here injected is that my framework is the routing framework. This is the routing framework, right, that I'm configuring. The routing framework is the one who's parsing this. Okay, so we're gonna have to ask the routing framework for that parameter, right? It is the routing framework who's handling all this, right? So the way we ask it, the way we ask the routing framework to come in and help us is we use one of its various services. We have a route provider, right? That's the one that configures the navigation. And there's route params. Route params is a service that is responsible for parsing that URL and making all those parameters available to you, right? So we're asking for that, and we're going to ask if we're gonna grab that username. We're gonna say, console or var username is from the route parameters dot username. Creates a map. You create the map with everything that was parsed out, the value of each one of these parameters, right? And we can just say console.log username, or we can feed the scope, right? We can feed the scope username. Okay, and in our profile, we can just display username. Hello. All right, so let's try that. There it is. Hello, Alice. Right. Notice that we lost. Remember, none of this is being persisted, right? So it doesn't. If I refresh the page, everything goes back to 0. Right. So let's go back home. Let's try this. Alice. Sign in. I go to the profile. It says hello, Alice. Let me go back and refresh. And if I say Bob, I sign in, I go to profile, it says hello, Bob, right? So there is some state information, right? Because the service is remembering all this. It is the server who's maintaining state, right? But if I refresh, everything goes away, right? So all this would have to be persisted at the server level, right? Which we'll do that. We'll start doing server-side programming next week, right? All right, what else? We would like to be able to log out. I would like to be able to log out. So let's do that at the navigate at the let's go here and create 2 more here. This will be 120 and 120. And let's bring this up and let's close all but this. Let's grab 120. Yeah, okay. So what I'd like to be able to do is from the navigation controller, we have a logout that only shows if there's a current user, right? If they click on that, I want to stay home. I mean, I don't want to go anywhere, right? Well, actually, no. If I log out, I don't care where I am. I should bring you back home because I don't know who you are anymore, right? So yes, I want to navigate back home, but I also want to notify my user service that, hey, there's nobody, there is no current user. There is no current user. So we're going to notify ng-click logout. And who's handling that? The navigational controllers handling that, right? So let's go to the navigation controller. Where is it? So here's the navigation controller. So we have a login. We also have a logout. Scope.logout function. So we're gonna notify the user service. We're gonna say user service logout. That's it, right? We're gonna notify so that we're gonna make that current user null, right? And we're gonna make current user null. Okay, the local copy of current user we're gonna make it null, right? But notify the user service so that any other controllers, right, that you navigate to, that user would no longer exist, right? So let's create that logout in the user service, right? Login, logout. Here's logout. We're going to declare logout. So var logout function. We're going to say current user equal null, right? And we're going to expose that here. So log out. So let's go home. Let's say Alice, and we sign in. Log out. It's not working. Why is this not working? Oh, because 120. 120. Let's try again. Alice, sign in. Still not working. What's going on? Let's see. Console. The JS file. I didn't change that. Computers. Let's see, Alice, sign in, and I log out. There it is, right? So if I log out, current user is null. I bring back my login information, and notice that the profile is no longer available, right? So I can't navigate to my profile because I have logged out. Also, I can log out from anywhere, right? If I log in, right, and I go to my about or my contact, or I'm anywhere, right? or even in my profile, wherever I am, I click on Logout. It navigates back to home, right? And it clears out the user. We should also clear this out, right? We should clear that out. Maybe we should say that, you know, the navigation controller, we should make these guys null, right? Oops. But these guys should be null. So they don't show. Again, so if I log in, sign in, go to profile, log out, there's no username and password. Okay, makes sense? All right, so let's talk about information about that particular user that's logged in. If I go to profile, I'd like to see information about me, right? Also, perhaps we might want to show different things depending on the role, right? Depending, maybe if you're an admin, your profile would show things that would not be shown if you're a student or faculty, or depending on what you are, right? So let's see how we would do that, right? So to do that, we're going to add an additional piece of information here, right? In Alice, we're going to say that we're going to have a role. So Alice is going to be an admin. Roles could be an array. Oops, wait. Could be an array, right? Instead, if you want to have many roles, right? Bob is going to be a faculty. And Charlie is going to be a student, right? So the profile, we're going to have the profile wait, that's not the profile. The profile might have different sections, right? And depending on your current role, will show one thing or another, right? Right. So one of the things I would like to show here is the current user that is logged in, right? And that information should be available. Let's see. Oops, this is 120, right? So let's see. We have username. So this is Alice. Sign in, and we go to profile. I guess we don't have the current user. Let's see. We would need to in the controller for the profile, right? We would like to send the current user from where? Where could we get the current user? From the user service, right? From the user service. Do we have the user service? Yeah, we did inject it, right? So we can say user dot get current user, right? So we can send it over. Let's see if that works. So Alice, sign in. Profile still doesn't work. Are we doing 120? In scope, current user, get current user. Current user. Is that what we called it? We did, didn't we? Current user, right? Current user. Let's step through this. Let's see, console, source, bring this up, and we'll have the profile controller come here. We're gonna put a breakpoint here. Hello? What? Why can't I put a breakpoint? Why can I not put a breakpoint? Alice. That's weird. Let me restart my browser. Let's run this. No, I don't want that. I want this one. 120. Inspect. Source. Oh, now I can. Whatever. Okay. Something with my browser. All right, so let me log in. All right, so I'm going to go Alice, sign in. I'm going to profile. There it is. I'm there. I'm stepping through username. I got a username, Alice. Okay. Okay. Do I have a current user? I do. Alice, role and username. In the console. I'm sorry? Yes, current user is an object, and it should display as an object, right? Okay, that's going to okay, let's see. Looks promising. There it is. Okay. I guess I had a refresh, or I had a cached copy, whatever. All right, so we have the object, right? So we have the object. So in the profile, we could decide to show different things, right? We could say, maybe, so this would be current user dot username, right? And depending on the role, I might allow, right? If you're faculty, maybe you can create courses, right? If you're a student, maybe you could see the courses that you're registered in. All right. So let's have here a div for the faculty, right? So I'm going to say maybe show this only if, show it only if the current user dot role equal faculty, right? So here I could say maybe H2 course courses, create courses, right? But if you're a student, maybe I could say if your role is a student, then I can show maybe courses, registered courses. Okay, right? So here, right. So let's try this again. Let's go and say, Alice, sign in. Go to profile, and that doesn't work. No, I'm going to refresh this. Alice. Oh, Alice is an admin, right? Oh, right. So let's try Bob. So Bob is faculty, I think. That didn't work either. What's going on? Console, are you complaining about something? Alice. It's displaying. What's the controller doing? Username, blah blah blah. Username. Display the current user. Let's log in. Alice, sign in. Profile. Logout takes me here. Alice, sign in. Profile. Okay, that worked. Oh, I guess I'm logged out. I'm at a page that I'm not supposed to be in, right? I'm at a page that I'm not supposed to be in, and I'm logged out, right? So I should have never been able to log in from my profile page, because I should never be able to see my profile page if I'm not logged in. But obviously, I'm a developer. I can do anything I want. Okay, I'm in the wrong state for the application. Okay, all right. Let's try this again. So let's do Bob, log in. There we go. Create courses, right? Because I'm a faculty. Or if I am, what's the other one? Charlie, whatever. And I go to profiles as registered courses, right? So I can see one or the other, right? And for that, I might have different. If I'm in my profile for the creating courses, I might have different things, right? For instance, a list of courses. Maybe I like to have a list of slides, list of videos, list of assignments, things that I can have, right? So maybe we can have like a tab, right? Like a whole bunch of tabs where I can see different things. Okay, so let's do that. And also there might be different types of faculty, right? Not types, different faculty, and depending on which faculty you are, you'll have different courses that you're working on, right? Same thing, right? If you're a different student, you'll see different courses. So let's see if we can create that data model for that. So the data model might be something like this, right? So let's see. What the data model might be, let's see. We can embed it here. We can embed it here, or we can have a separate list of here, right? We can say var courses, and I might have let's see, a title for the course, right? So maybe this is Java 101. Now let's see what else. So this is maybe Node.js 101, AngularJS 101, MongoDB 101, right? And what else? Maybe I could have it per user, right? It could be that this could be a map. This could be a map where I might have the Bob, who's a faculty. I could say Bob that has an array of courses. And these are the courses for Bob. Okay. And maybe I have another faculty. Might have Dan. And Dan has other courses, right? So Dan is a Windows guy, and he's teaching, ASP.NET, and he's teaching, he's working on C# and Entity Framework. Okay. So he has different courses for those. All right. So this is a map that, knowing the user, I can always fetch the courses that they're working on. Okay. And then I can have maybe a separate one, registrations. I can say var registrations. And this is another map that tells me what courses is what user registered in. Right. It could be inverse map. You could say that each course knows which users are registered in it, or you can have from a users have a list of courses that they're registered in, right? Or you can have a many-to-many, right? You can have a list of courses, list of users, and then a many-to-many that says, oh, this student is registered in that course, right? There's different ways of going about it. We'll talk about which way we could use when we start talking about data modeling, when we talk about MongoDB. In MongoDB, in a relational database, it's obvious, right? You would have to have a many-to-many mapping table, right? That says that user, that student is registered in that course, right? And this course has that many students, right? So you have many-to-many, and you would have to join the tables, right? In MongoDB is not as clear-cut, right? Because we don't have joins in MongoDB, right? We do have references. We have documents that might have arrays that reference other objects, right? Other documents, and oftentimes you have in a many-to-many you might have, right, in one parent referencing many children, right, with an array of IDs. And the other way around too, children with an array of indices referencing their parents, right? So that you have this many-to-many going backwards and forwards, and there are different ways of doing it. You can actually have a many-to-many document that actually has references to both documents, right? But there are more than one way of representing it. It's not clear-cut, right? It depends what it is that you want to render, right? Do you want to know? Is it mostly that you want to, from the point of view of the student, that you want to see who what are they registered in? Is that your most common query, right? Or is it that you want to look at the course and look at the students that are registered in, right? Well, it depends which one is more common. Perhaps it's mostly from the user's from the student's point of view, right? That I want to log in, I want to see my courses, right? So if that's the more common query, right, then it might make sense to that is to represent it as students having arrays to their courses, right? And then we have to fetch those courses, right? Whereas the other case might be less common, right? You might have 40,000 students, but you might only have 1,000 faculty, right? So it'll be more common having students looking at the registration pages, right, and who's registering and what, than perhaps faculty looking on for a particular course, who are my students. Or maybe that's not the case, right? You might have 1,000, you might have less faculty, but accessing their websites more commonly, right, than users actually looking at the registration. So it depends, right? Or we might want to maintain both, right? Unlike relational databases where you have a strong referential integrity, where you have the database is helping you maintain referential integrity. Over here, a lot of cases, the responsibility is left to the application, right? To make sure that you're maintaining that if you have references backwards and forwards, right, that they make sense, right? But there are ways also to enlist the help from the database to make sure that you're not creating bogus data, right? And we'll look at that when we talk about MongoDB in 2 weeks. Not next week, the following, okay? Anyway, so from the registrations, this will be from the student's point of view, right? And they will say, well, student, what students do I have? Which students do I have? Charlie's a student, right? I'll have, Charlie, and they might be registered in several other courses, right? So this might be, actually, you know what? Let's represent it. Let's represent it as follows. Let's see. Here are the courses. If I'm a faculty, right, I can say courses, and then say these are the courses that I'm working on, right? So in here I can have an array and say I'm working on course 1, 2, and 3, and I'm a student, right? And I'm registered in courses 2, 3, and 4, right? And then in courses, I can have just an array, and this would be indices. This could be just indices into an array, right? And so here are the courses, and this is just an array. An array. Like that. We have, let's see, we have the courses. Oh, did I just delete all the other courses? I didn't mean to. Copy this. Here, comma. Take away Dan and registrations. All right, so, well, let's see. And we need to close this. Okay, there we go. All right, so we have a list of courses. The faculty know who they're working on, right? So for instance, this might be authoring. I'm working on that. I'm teaching, these other courses, right? 3, 4, 5. I am registered, so the student is registered in there, right? Do we have enough? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, we have enough. All right, there we go. So, all right, let's see. We have the data. We have the courses. We have the user. We have the courses, right? All right, so in the profile, what do I want to do? Let's see. I can create courses. Maybe I can work it courses authored. So courses authored, right? And I can have another section, courses teaching, right? I have a list of courses teaching, and the student just have courses that they're registered in. Okay. All right. Let's see. How do we put data in here? How do we put data in here? Let's see. Well, here we have the current user, right? We have the current user, and we have the data current user dot authored, don't we? Do we have data authored? Or authoring author, let's call it authored. No, actually, no, author, I like the name authoring better. So here I can say authoring. I have a list of the courses that you're authoring, and I have a list of the courses. I have a list of the courses that you're teaching, right? And over here, if you're students, I have the courses that you're registered in, right? Is it registered? Registered. Okay, let's try this again. Oh my goodness. Thank you. Let's go home and let's go to, who is my faculty? Bob, right? Bob is a faculty. I'll say Bob, I'll sign in. I'll go to profile. So I have, there it is. So I have the data. I do know the indices of the courses, yes? 1, 2, 3, 3, 4, 5, right? But I don't actually have the data of the courses, right? Because they live elsewhere, don't they? They live here in courses over here. I could somehow, right, feed this data into this here, right? Into this over here, right? But instead, I think that data should live elsewhere, right? Perhaps we should have a separate, like a course services, right? That allows us to register for the course, to create a course, to remove a course, to edit a course, right? So it looks like this warrants its own collection, right? Its own service, right? So let's grab this, right? Let's grab this, right? Let's grab this data, and let's put this elsewhere, right? Let's have a separate service, right? App.factory, and let's have this the course service, and let's have this function, right? And for now, it will be a hard-coded list of courses, right? And this should provide services such as, I don't know, maybe add course, so function, and maybe you can pass me some data for that course, and maybe I can add it. Maybe I can say, courses dot push the course, right? Maybe I can say var. I can get a course, maybe by ID, or maybe by index, right now. Next week, when we start looking at database, it'll be by ID, right? With some record stored or some document stored in MongoDB, it will retrieve it by ID. So right now we only have an index. So by index, so function, and we have an index. And what do we return? We return, we have a list of courses, sub, and then the index, right? Return the index. And over here, we might return an API. The API might be to add the course, and to get the course by index. Right. So now that we have the service, we can feed that service to the profile controller. Right. We can feed that. Now we have the data for the courses. Right. So we have the current user. We have the courses in which they're registered in. Right. So we could fetch those things. Right. So let's see. So we have the current user. All right. If we want to send, let's see, depending on the role, right, we would like to send you the courses that you're authoring, the courses that you are teaching, or the courses that you register for, right? So, if the current user, right, if the current user role is faculty, right? I would like to send you, I would like to create an array and send you, right, authoring, an array authoring, right? Right now is empty. Right now it's empty. I want to fetch those courses for you, and give them to you, right? Or maybe should that be part of the service? I think it should be part of the service, right? That's something typically that we do on the server, right? And do all these query, right? So let's go back out to our service. Let's go back to our service, core service. Maybe we could do get courses, maybe get courses by indices, right? So we could provide an array of indices, right? So by indices, so we provide an array of indices. So these are indices, right? So we're going to create an array here, var courses, and core, what do we call the response courses. And it's going to be an array. We're going to iterate. We're going to fetch all those courses in the index, right? And we're going to put them here, and then we're going to respond with all the courses, right? This is something you would do on the server, right? You do a find by IDs, right? You would find all the courses, you would build a response, and then you would respond with an array of objects, right? And then over here, you would pass it on to the client, right? But we don't have that yet, so let's build that here. We're going to, what are we going to do? We're going to have the array. We have the indices that we want, so we want to fetch all these guys, right? So let's see. We're going to iterate over those indices in the var I in indices, right? We're going to get the course. It's going to be what? It's going to be courses sub the index, right? Indices sub I. Now we have the course, and we're going to push it into the response. Push the course. I'm going to respond with. Make sense? Right, so we have a big array of courses, of objects, and we're only picking out a couple. Right, which one? The indices that we send you. Okay. So okay, we're going to expose this as part of the service. Right. And now we can go back to our client and to our profile controller and then say, okay, if you're faculty authoring, you will fetch what? From the user service, from the core service, sorry, from the core service, we're going to get courses by indices, right? Where are those indices? It's in the currently registered user, currently logged in user, right? It's scope current user, right? Dot what? Authoring, right? Authoring. Okay, and I'm sending that to the profile, right? I'm also going to send you what else? The courses that I'm teaching, right? So I'm going to fetch teaching, and I'm going to send that to the UI, right? And then in the UI, I'm going to grab that in the profile, and I'm going to display. This is just authoring. I put it in an array called authoring, and I put it in an array called teaching, right? It's okay, so let's try this again. Let's go to home, and log in. Oops, something. What's going on? Okay, now blah 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 blah. Role Angular. I think I had something cached. Okay, so the faculty is Bob. Bob, sign in. Go to more profile, and there it is, right? So I have notice that I have three objects that I am authoring. Node.js, Angular, and Mongo. Let's see if that's true. Let's see if that's correct. So here's the users, and here's Bob, and it's authoring 1, 2, 3. Right? Let's see what courses is that. It's 1, 2, 3. So it's 1 Node.js, 2, and 3. So it's Node.js, Angular, and Mongo. Node.js, Angular, and Mongo. Right? So that's correct. And teaching, I'm teaching what? Let's see. Teaching. I'm teaching 3, 4, 5, right? So let's look at that. Where's that? So it's 3, 4, 5. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So MongoDB, ASP, and C#, MongoDB, ASP, and C#. So it's working, right? So I have it in the profile. So now I can iterate this. Instead of displaying like this, I can just iterate, right? I can just say, you know, UL LI, and just show here what the title, right? From where? From the course, that title from the ng repeat course in authoring, right? And something similar for teaching, right? Something same thing, but this is iterating over teaching, right? And let's let's go to home. So this is Bob. I go to profiles. There we go. So I have the courses as being authored and that I'm teaching. Just to make sure that this is working, let's create another faculty member. So let's create Dan. And Dan, right, if I log in as Dan, also has the role of faculty, but Dan is teaching 1, 3, and 5, and he's authoring those, and he's teaching 2, 4, and 6. Okay, right? Do we have 7? No, okay, but we do have 6, right? We have 6, and I just want to make them a bit bigger. Home, log out. Okay, so I'm gonna refresh. So now I'm gonna log in as Dan. Sign in. I go to profile. Now I have 4, right? If I log out and I go here to Bob, right, and I sign in, I go to profile. I have the 3 for Bob. See that we have different data for different people. If you are a student, we have register. So that's okay. We could do that as well, right? We can, but we have to go to the controller for the profile controller. Profile controller. See, if it's starting to get big, right? Ideally, these would live in separate files, right? And we could make it easier to maintain. So if the scope is, if the current user is not faculty, right? Else, if they are student, then I would show the courses that they are registered, right? And this would be the array current user registered, okay? And we would need to display that using the same UL, right? And this would be iterating over registered, right? Let's see if that works. So I'm going to log out. I'm going to refresh. I'm going to log in as Charlie's a student. Charlie. Sign in. If I go to my profile, I'm a student and I'm registered in those courses. Okay, that makes sense. All right. So if I'm a professor, I should be able to remove a course, right, or add a new course. So let's add that ability. So for instance, here so let's create another one, right? Let's split this up into the next one. Copy paste. Oops. So this is 130. So 130 and 130. 130. So let me open that up. Let me close everybody else. Close all but this and that. So let's do the simple one. Let's do a simple one that is remove a course. That's easier, right? So in here, maybe what we want to do for the profile. Let me open up the profile. For the profile, in here, if I'm authoring this, right, I might put right next to you here a span with an X next to you, right? So I'll put times. Times is an X, right? So if I refresh this, oops, sorry, home, and if I go to Bob, profile. That's an X, right? It has an X right next to it. I can make this clickable so that maybe I put this in a. Maybe I can say ng click. So all these event handlers notify the controller, right? The controller is the one that maps events that occur in the UI as you're dragging, you're moving, you're clicking, you're doing things, right? And then it notifies the model and says, hey, model, through the service, right? It says, hey, the user has requested a change in the model, right? But it does not change the model. But the controller is not changing the model. It delegates this on services, and the services have encoded all the business logic, right? On whether, yes, you can remove it, no, you can't remove it, no, they're students currently registered, you can't remove the course, right? Things like that. So all that business logic would live, maybe as first responder here in the UI, but eventually also in the server. The server should also verify this business logic and make sure that you're not leaving orphans, right? Records that are orphaned. But let's not get into that just yet. So here we have remove course, right? So I want to remove course, and presumably I want to pass here the course that I'm removing. I should be able to pass here the index. Well, the other day it didn't work for some reason. Let me go to the controller, the profile controller, and get here an event handler on that remove, right? Remove. What do I call it? Did I call it remove? Yeah, remove, right? And so this is going to be scope dot remove. It'll be a event handler that receives the index of what I want to remove, right? So console. Let's see that I can remove it. Let me go home and refresh, and let's see that I can see the console. Login is Bob. Sign in profile, and as I click here, oh, it's 1:30. Ugh. 1:30. Refresh. Home. Okay, log in as Bob. Sign in. Go to profile. See why I hate computers? 1:30. Never do what I want them to do. They do exactly what I tell them to do. So here, profile, I'm going to do Bob, and I sign in. I go to profile, and if I click here, I get 0, 1, 2. So I know which one I want to remove, right? So now that I know who I want to remove, I would go back to my service, core service, and says, hey, I want to remove it, right? I want to remove that. So I'm going to say remove course by index. So I'm going to provide you an index. So I want you to remove that one, right? And so in the course service, I need to provide that, right? So let's go to course service. Where is it? Course service. No. Fine. Course. There it is. So I need a function here that removes that. Let's say var course index is equal function, and then the index function index. And so basically that's an index into my array, right? Of the currently logged in user, right? So presumably it's wait a minute. Who handles this? It's the user, right? Not the course. So I'm not modifying a course. I'm removing what? From the user's point of view, I'm removing their course. I'm not removing it from here. So should we remove? So is this okay? So is this an aggregation or a composition, right? Or do I actually want to remove the course? Just throw away the record for the course? Or do I want to say that I'm no longer authoring the course, but the course is still there, and maybe somebody else is authoring the same course, right? So what I really want to do is remove the linkage between the user, right, Okay, so I don't want to remove the actual course, right? So what I want to do, okay, I think I ran out of time. So basically what I want to go, right, is I want to go to the user, right, and modify, right, these arrays. These are the arrays I want to modify, right? I want to say, no, you are no longer authoring to, or you're no longer teaching this. But it doesn't mean that the course doesn't exist still, right? So I would remove this, and then I would update my profile, right? And the array would go away, right? The element from the array would go away, and I would re-update that, okay? All right, let's leave it here, right? And we'll come back and finish up this next week, all right? All right, thank you.